All right, guys, welcome back. Today, I wanted to recap what happened throughout the Maverick Mayhem week in Indiana, bringing a speed week of some sorts with 410 wing sprint cars to the state of Indiana. And I mentioned this during the video, prior to the racing started, that this is something that people have been talking about and people have been wanting to see for quite a while now. People have been asking, hey, we got so many great racetracks in the state of Indiana. Why can't we get some kind of winged 410 sprint car speed week to come through here? And finally, the IRA and the Maverick Wing Sprint Car Series were able to put that together and have a really successful week as far as the car counts go, the racing went, all that great stuff. Now, did the fans come out and enjoy it? It didn't really seem like there was that many people at many of the races. With the exception of Hobstadt, they seemed to have a pretty good crowd there. But for the rest of them, it just didn't really seem like there was a ton of people there on flow. Now, I wasn't there, obviously, so I cannot report back on that. It just didn't seem like there was that many people there. And I think after all these people that could have been there, maybe watched on flow or watched the highlight reels and saw the fields there, they probably regretted not being there. And hopefully next year, if this does happen again, they will come out and take part in these races because, man, was there some really good cars there. It was a very underrated field each and every night at all four of these races. So let's go over the results from the four races, each of them paying at $6,000 to win, so a solid winner's payout for the guys that were there. Lincoln Park Speedway was the first race, started off with a bang with 55 cars showing up for this one, and it ended up being a fantastic race between Ayrton Geniton and Emerson Axum. A last lap pass resulted with Axum getting his first ever 410 sprint car win. Ayrton Geniton finished second, and Chris Windom ended up in the third spot. And this was a great week for Chris Windom, a great week for him, a great week for Jacob Allen as well, a great way for them to try and build some confidence, build some momentum before High Limit kicks back off this week. And I think it definitely helped both of those drivers for sure. Then at Bloomington Speedway on the next night, there was 47 cars in attendance, and Jacob Allen was able to get the win there. Really was not challenged very much throughout that race. He basically dominated. I think he led almost every single lap. Emerson Axum continued his great week with a second place run. And once again, Chris Windom, ended up in the third position to continue a great week as well. Jacob Allen, a very awesome win for him. His mom, and he's technically from Indiana. His mom was in attendance there, and it was cool to see him get a win at Bloomington Speedway on a pretty technical racetrack. I mean, they had the racetrack dialed in there. Typical Bloomington, right up against the rim on the outside, had to slow down to hit the bottom, slick through the middle, and Jacob Allen did a great job over there and was able to get his fourth win of the year, his second with Maverick. Now, the third night, Tri-State Speedway in Hobstadt, Indiana, 51 cars showed up for that one, including the likes of Tyler Courtney and Justin Peck. Now, Peck, I don't know what his plans were, prior to this weekend. I don't know if this was the plan all along for him to come and run the Michael Dutcher 17 GP car or not, but I don't know if it was last minute or whatever. But Tyler Courtney, this was definitely not the plan for him. He was supposed to be at Huset's. That rained out, and so he made his way over to Hobstadt and basically dominated. Now, I will give, I did put out a top 10 racetrack video on this channel not too long ago. Hobstadt was P1 on that list, but come on, guys, that was just way too much track prep. I was trying to watch that race, and it felt like an hour before the feature rolled off. Just way, way, way too much track prep. It was completely unnecessary. Maybe half of that, maybe a quarter of what they did could have been useful to provide a good racetrack. It just felt like it took way too long for the racetrack to get racy at the end. And another thing is you put a guy like Tyler Courtney out front, it's going to be extremely hard to pass him. He is so good at Hobstadt with the wing on top. And, the other thing was, he's racing against IRA guys. He's racing against guys that don't race wing sprint cars on a full-time basis, right? And he's a top 3 car in the entire country right now when it comes to wing 410s, and he was just not going to get past, right? Emerson Axum did a great job keeping up with him there, and he ended up in second. And Carson Short, back from the dead, he finished up in the third spot with no number on the car. I mean, there's a number on the tail tank, but the wing had not a single sticker on it. And no number on it, but he ended up third. Great to see him back behind the wheel here recently. But Tyler Courtney dominated that race. I just wish that Hobstadt, those guys would just cool it a little bit with the tractors, because I think that it would have been fantastic, a really, really good race if they would have just kind of did not prep the track for literally almost an hour before the feature started. So Great job, though, to Tyler Courtney as he went on to win as well at the Terre Haute Action Track. 37 cars showed up for that one. He won. And Noah Gass, how about a second-place result at Terre Haute for Noah Gass and Scotty Thiel? So those two kind of shaking up the podium a little bit there at the end of the weekend on Sunday. And that race, Tyler Courtney, I mean, he made a great pass, a freaking crazy pass around the outside in turns 3 and 4 to get by Wyndham and Axum to move from third to first in one corner through lap traffic. The track looked like it was actually in really good shape. It's just, in my opinion, when it comes, if you had to take a wing sprint car and a non-wing sprint car to Terre Haute and tell me which one is the better racing product, I'm going to say non-wing every single time. Non-wing cars at Terre Haute is where it should be there. Wing cars, it's hard to get them to race good there. But Tyler Courtney dominated. And I think that if they do this again next year, I think they need to replace the Terre Haute date with maybe something else in Indiana, right? There's so many different racetracks that they could choose from, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. Now, the overall points, going into the week, they did not have a points fund for this series. There was no winner's share at the end of the thing for the guy that scores the most points. But as the week went on, they were able to find people to put up money for the top 3 in the points at the end. And Emerson Axum was able to take down the points championship. It was worth $1,250. An average finish for him of 3.5 throughout the week. He was, first, second, and I can't remember on the fourth night. He might have been like 8th or 6th or something like that. Struggled a little bit on the bigger track at Terre Haute, but still good enough to get the points championship. Chris Wyndham, solid week for him. $750 for the second place in the points. An average finish of 4.0. He was third, and then I think he was 5th and 5th on the other 2 nights. So a good week for Chris Wyndham. Hopefully build some momentum going into Lake Ozark and Lucas Oil Speedway coming up this week with a high limit. And hopefully that team can get back on track on the national level. And then Jacob Allen, he got a win, obviously, at Bloomington. His average finish was 6.0 throughout the week, and he got $500 for finishing third in the point standings. Solid week as well for Jacob Allen. Now, as far as the full-time cars go, there were 31 cars ran all 4 nights of this speed week, which is just incredible. Great job by everybody at IRA and Maverick to put together a schedule like this and schedule it at the right time, right? To get 31 cars to run every single race was great. And also you had at least one guy showed up for at least one race. There were 65 cars that showed up for at least one race. So good numbers there for 4 nights of action in Indiana. Average car count of 47.5. And I think that could have been a little bit higher, maybe in the 50s if they would have went to maybe a smaller track instead of Terre Haute. They could have maybe gotten the mid-40s, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. But a really, really good at car count. 47.5 was the average for them. And then the IRA points. I want to talk about this for a moment because there was quite the shift in the point standings here between the top 2. Going in, Jake Blackhurst had the points lead, but after this 4-race stretch, he is now 23 behind Scotty Thiel. And then it's Scotty Neitzel in third. He's a long ways back, 204 back. Jordan Goldsberry, 210 back, and Danny Schlafer, 217 back. So I want to mention the IRA points because they did change hands at the top there midway or through this speed week here. Now, my thoughts after watching, I did not get to watch the whole race at Terre Haute, but I did watch the features for the rest of these races. And my thoughts, great, just fantastic fields, right? Diverse fields, big fields of cars. Really, I feel like the first 2 nights before Tyler Courtney showed up, you really didn't know who was going to win. There was a lot of guys that you could have marked down as, hey, maybe this guy could win or whatever. In the heat races, there was a lot of guys making moves and winning heats that you probably, some people probably never heard of a lot of drivers that were in these fields this week, especially with Husitz raining out. So a lot of eyes went from there to, the Dirt Cup and to this IRA week. And so a lot of guys maybe getting some TV time and some more eyeballs that they're not used to seeing. And so I thought that the diverse fields and the big fields was really cool to see. There's also obviously good racetracks that they're racing at. But like I was saying earlier, if they could take Terre Haute off, I just feel like that one, it's just not a good wing sprint car track in my opinion. Now, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comment section below. But I would like to see them switch that night out for maybe a Paragon or a Kokomo, a Circle City, a Lawrenceburg. There's just so many good options in the state of Indiana that they could have used and kept it kind of a smaller racetrack speed week, and to keep some of these guys that, aren't really, they don't have the motors to contend at Terre Haute. They don't have the setups. They aren't really, used to running big tracks with a wing on top, right? I think that if you would have went to one of these smaller racetracks, you could have kept that car count really high and kept the interest in it, right? Like Terre Haute, I wasn't like, sitting there in my house like, oh, appointment TV, I got to watch Terre Haute, right? I'm like, maybe I'll watch the feature, maybe not. I don't really care that much. But like when it came to these other three, I'm like, I got to watch this, right? So I think you could have kept the interest up a little bit with these 4 racetracks down here. And then obviously the low spectator count. I mean, it's kind of tough when you don't have a big name like a Rico or a Sheldon or a Larson or a Donnie Schatz or a guy like that that's in the field to draw people out there. There really wasn't like a huge name that was there every single night. Tyler Courtney, his name is starting to get up the popularity board, obviously. And so it was cool to see him at those last 2 races, but there wasn't really that star power that, was able to draw fans out. And we all know that Indiana is a non-wing state, right? They love their non-wing sprint cars. They love Indiana Sprint Week. They love USAC, right? And so it's hard to draw those fans out there. But I think when you see the racing that happened, you see the fields, I think next year if they do this again, then you're going to see more people coming out there to enjoy it. Now, the final thing, and like I said, like with the low spectator count, you got to start somewhere with this. Nobody's really ever done this before, a winged sprint car speed week through Indiana. So you got to start somewhere, and I really hope they do this again next year because it was a lot of fun to watch. Like I said, you never know who was going to win. A lot of parity in the week, I felt like. And also, I feel like this week kind of showed Emerson Axum, right? First, second, and I don't know where he was at, Terre Haute, like top 5 or top 10 or something. Emerson Axum, could he potentially be one of the guys you see on a wing sprint car tour next year? The Outlaws, High Limit, I don't know. But he was extremely impressive this week and kind of jumped onto the map as far as guys that could potentially be one of those next couple to go into a wing sprint car tour. So, I don't know. Fun week of racing. I really hope they do it again next year. Great job by everybody at IRA and the Maverick Wing Sprint Car Series. Maverick Mayhem, I would say, was a success on the racing side of things and everything like that. Hopefully next year the spectators do come out and support. But what did you guys think? I want to hear it down in the comment section below. Let me know down there. Also hit subscribe, hit the like button. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll talk to you again here soon.